Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. This is the third work group meetings, and tonight's topics will focus on economy and quality of lives. Next slides. So just want to refresh everybody's memories that we already been through two meetings. The first one focused on environmental and transportation, and the second one was about housing and local planning and land use. And I think that today's meeting is kind of tie into all six components together, despite that we are focused on economy and quality of life, but the four topics that we have been discussed in the previous two meetings, which is directly, indirectly tied into two topics that we are going to discuss tonight. And for those has been sitting in the previous two meetings, you know the way we are going to discuss. So, but I will still try to explain a little bit for those people that join us the first time, because this is the topic they are more related to their work. So today's agenda, the part one, we are going to focus on economy, and then the part two, we are going to focus on the quality of life. Next slide. And on this slide, you can see that the people that sitting in the advisory committee for the Access Sustainable Community Renewal Plans. So thank you so much for your participation. We really appreciate your time and efforts. Next slide. Next slide. So, and this slide, we have different county agencies and also nonprofit organizations. They join us and brief us or update us what their recent project in the areas or the programs they offer to the community member in this area. And as what I know, that we have representative from the police, recreation and parks, economic and workforce development, and also we have the from the Office of County Executive, and also the PAIs, and then we also have events from the Access Library, and then our one of the community member is from the Access Senior Centers. And then before we start the meeting, we might also have I know the neighbor space, the Phillips will not be able to attend. I hopefully the community assistance network will be able to join us. Next slide. And again, that's the reason we are going to renew this sustainable community plans, because this is state programs and it's required to renew every 5 years. So the way that they will encourage and incentivize communities across the state to practice sustainable and smart growth practice in their growth and the revitalization goals. So the reason when we renew this plan, we kind of updated the outcome we would like to see in the next 5 years. And on the right of the slide, you can see several funding programs which can be received within the sustainable boundary areas. Next slide. And this slide showing the current existing sustainable community plan boundary in Essex. So showing this is the areas to the end of this Back River Bridge all the way to Martin Airport to the northern part, and then combine and have several community within these areas. Next slide. And before we really dive into the first topic, economy, that we are going to discuss tonight. So we did the kickoff surveys. So we collected the 131 survey, and this slide and the next slide just showing you the demographic background of those people that take the survey. So you can see the 45% they are the residents, and then almost 57% they are living in this area over 10 years. Next slides. And this one showing the those who take the surveys, their age range and their racial profiles. And there's also small portion of Hispanic population take the surveys. Next slide. So now this is we are going to talk about the economy of today's first topics. Next one. So before we really discuss, I just want to briefly describe how we are going to facilitate the discussions. So first, we will talk about the strengths and weakness of the of the communities. And after those strengths and weaknesses we came up with, then we are going to discuss what potential outcome we would like to see regarding economy in the next 5 years. And then we will discuss potential strategies or actions we can identify to support the outcome to be achieved, and what are the partners we might be able to identify to help or facilitate those implementations. And again, economy here, you can see on the screen, the yellow part is including like a business attraction, retention, or workforce attraction, retention, and branding, tourism, and improve or creating economy impact of cultural historical assets, and also vibrancy through streetscaping and beautification. So cover right a range of topics. So that is something that we are going to discuss. Next slide. So before we review the 2018 action plan, so we would like to see that there is anything you would like to revise or update, or anything that has been listed in the 2018 action plan is not really applicable now and you would like to remove or maybe update it. Next slide. And here I want to give you a little bit background that based on the 131 survey that we take, then people identify the strengths of the community regarding economy is the great restaurants, entertainment, wonderful outdoor restaurants, and restaurants on the waters, and small businesses such as Pizza John's, and then the Heritage Society museums. Next slides. And in the next two slides today, I'm kind of grouping some of the strengths has been outlined in the 2018 action plans, which including employment and transportation, which you're seeing on the screen. So regarding the employment here, for example, the first one said the major institution in the general area, including the Community College of Baltimore County and the Mesta Franklin State Hospital, Square Hospital, which provide a large number of high-quality jobs and services to community. That's one of the relate to the employment, and we have the transportation, for example, excellent multimodal transportation access with immediate connection to I-695 and I-95 and a Class 1 flight railroads, Mountain State Airport, MARC, regional transit, and just a few miles from the port of Baltimore. Next slides. And then the other two is the designated area, which we have, for example, Chesapeake enterprise zones extending to the Lockheed Martin complex. And we have also commercial revitalization districts, of course, and also sustainable community plan within this area. So this is all designated areas within the Essex, and also the county landmark designation programs. And the other one is tourism and business association. We have strong and well-established marina areas. We have Heritage Society of Essex and Middle River Museum. We have wide, strong business associations such as the Chesapeake Gateway Chambers of Commerce, and also other community association has been a mega effort to improve their neighborhood. So that is pretty much the strengths has been outlined in the 2018 action plan, and also what we gather from the survey. So we are going to stop sharing the screen, and then we are going to discuss what strengths we have regarding economy in these areas. So who would like to kick off the discussion tonight? Okay, always like Sharon, I would like you to, since you have been involved a lot of initiatives, maybe you can start something. Yeah.
I think that there were a lot of good things listed on the strengths in the economy. I think there are a few things that we could add. Just talking about, I think I've been with Sam Weaver enough where he talks about all of the good things, and we kind of joke about it, about what's so great about Essex, but there is a pretty good list there. And I think some of that should be mentioned. I know we mentioned the MedStar Franklin Square, but Bayview is about the same distance from Essex as that is. I think that's also a strength. Um, um, can we mention, now that this is our second round on sustainable community, can we mention that we have had the sustainable community designation? We talk about the commercial revitalization and the enterprise zone, but we have had sustainable community, which for those of us doing the projects, that's been the biggest source of funding of all of it. So to be able to say that we've had that for the last 5 years. Um, I would add Essex Sky Park to Martin State Airport in that category. And I think we need to say something a little more about Trade Point and Greenlee now that so much investment has taken place in those areas. I think they maybe have their own bullet or something, and we talk a little bit about what they are offering. For Trade Point Atlantic, 10,000 plus jobs. For Greenlee, how much, 2 million square feet of commercial space and 2,000 residents and an over 6,500 jobs, or whatever the numbers are exactly right now. But I think that it's important that we talk about those because they are huge economic drivers in this area. And so I think they deserve a little bit more attention. Um, and then I guess the only other thing I would say is that there are other tourist attractions that are worthy of note on this list, and I would take it to nearby areas, not just in Essex, but what is close by that would generate good economy for Essex as well. Things like, well, we do have the waterfront parks. We've got the waterfront golf course. We've got all the miles of shoreline. But then nearby, we've also got the Aviation Museum and Marshy Point. We've got, I think it's now 5 local breweries and a distillery, lots of hotels and restaurants, and the designation as one of the most affordable towns to live in the U.S. So I think all of those are some things that are beneficial.
Thank you. So things you mentioned about related to the tourism and the museum. Lisa, we want to talk about since you represented the Heritage of Society Museum.
Let me unmute there. Yeah, when I was looking at the strengths before and then kind of the plan and things, I know we talked about in 2018 about kind of increasing membership and increasing, visitors and things like that, which is something we definitely want to do. I think the past few years now since COVID, we've been operating in COVID mode. We used to be open every Saturday from 10 to 2 from April through November, and then the tree lighting in December. But we had to cut that back during COVID. We closed for a while. And then when we did reopen in 21, we kind of just made like a once a month thing. But I think things are getting more back to normal now. So we're definitely planning on doing more events and being open more often in 23. We're going to do a planning meeting in January to try to lay out the year so we can be more accessible to the community.
Thank you so much. And Rick, I think that Shannon talking about TPA is also one of the economic drives in the area. And I think that your work is still with TPA a lot. So do you want to give some updates or something to share with us?
Sure. TradePoint has, like Sharon said, TradePoint has probably close to about 12,000 direct jobs now at that location, and they're continuing to bring on new tenants. So there is definitely an opportunity for those who want to find work in the area to be able to jump on board. I know Niagara is going to be opening up first quarter of next year. That's a bottling manufacturer. There's about 2 other companies will be opening up in the second quarter. And there's about 10 tenants right now that are always looking for folks. So there is a direct pipeline, and I would definitely recommend going to the American Jobs Center on Eastern Boulevard, located right across the street from East Point Mall, for those job seekers that are looking to get information and to get into that pipeline if they need any kind of assistance for for hiring. The American Job Center is a great place for them to start. So there's a lot of things going on with Trade Point. They're also hoping to have a job fair in January to attract new employees as well. And that's going to be for all the tenants. We don't have a date on that yet, but it's still in the planning stages, and that's going to be a Trade Point event.
And also things on the strengths they in the 2018 they mentioned about multimodal transportation. Rick, do you want to have some information regarding the Trade Point at Atlantic have the bus route to the Essex? Do you have any information to share with?
I know that MTA has been looking at a direct route from White Marsh, Middle River, Essex to Trade Point for about the past year. And that's definitely something on the radar screen. I think when Trade Point did their marketing analysis as to where their employees are coming from, the eastern side of the county was one of the heavier locations. MTA currently has 2 direct routes from the city, which were the greatest number of increased ridership over the past couple of years. So we're hoping that could come to fruition within 2023.
Okay, thank you so much,
Sure.
Rick. And anyone want to chime in there any strengths regarding economy in the areas? Okay, Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, Sharon pretty much, shared most of what I was thinking as far as our strengths go. I mean, the Route 43 extension is definitely an addition. I know with a lot of the warehouse space and the things going on there up besides Greenlee. And also the revitalization of the Middle River Depot we're hoping is going to happen sometime soon. So I think that would definitely drive some economic gains for us and close to Essex. Now, I'm not sure what the MTA does as far as going up Route 43 from Essex. I don't know if there's any type of bus line or if it drops them off down there by the airport. I'm not sure what goes on there, but I mean, that is definitely something that could be a strength as far as that, getting a bus line up through those areas to help with people that don't have vehicles to get to work. So, yeah, that's pretty much, yeah, I would say Route 43 and the Middle River Depot would definitely be some strengths. Hopefully it'll go through.
Thank you, Pat.
Mhm.
Kevin and Leah, do you want to chime in?
All right, there we go. I mean, I guess I would say an increasing median income for the area. I know over the last couple of years, there's been a bit of an increase in the median income for Essex. So it certainly shows that Essex is becoming more of a marketable economy for people to want to relocate or to have a business located inside of. There's also been some growth in the Essex area, not only within the sustainable community designation area, but sort of the surrounding area, which again makes it a more vibrant and thriving economy for businesses to want to be a part of, to thrive in, or to even want to consider relocating to.
Okay. How about Leah? Do you have anything to add?
Nope, I'm good for now.
Okay, Cliff, how about you? Cliff?
I'm good. I think
Okay.
everything covered.
Pernell, will you want to add something?
Nothing extra to add right now.
Okay, good. So Sophie, will you mind to bring up? So since we talk about the strengths, then we are going to talk about the weakness of the areas. But before that, I also want to share with you that's what information we gather from survey. So here, people outline there are not many independent shops, empty storefronts, everything is old, the place need to be updated, no comments in the area to attract people visiting Essex. Grocery stores and clothing outlets for this area has become a thing of past. Too many commercial vacancies along Eastern Avenue, rundown, depressed, and blighted. Commercial corridors should could be cleaner and more organized. So this is the information we gathered from the surveys. And then again, the same thing that we are going to show you what has been outlined in the 2018 action plans. Next slides. So we also group them into 4 topics. So here, the strengths that we have major either educational institution or major company in the areas, but also the data showing that the employment rates compare this area to the across the county still much lower, and then the education level was a little bit lower compared to the rest of the counties. And so there's something related to the employment. And the weakness is also historical designations. They lack of the comprehensive survey to evaluate the opportunity for historical designation on the county and national levels. And commercial buildings lack architecture integrities to warrant landmarking on the county levels. Next slides. And also that's the other 2 topics they business in the commercial areas, which is something has been addressed based on the survey that we received, that the large number of vacancy properties and storefronts and poor appearance of the commercial areas, something like that. And then there's ones like weaknesses that they not really came up with a theme, but they kind of talking about residents working outside the area, negative perception of the areas because of crime, and then museum operation depending on volunteers. So this is some of the things, despite that we have a lot of strength, but there's also weakness which is noticeable in the areas. So I'm going to ask Sophie to stop sharing the screen. So we are going to talk about what are the other weaknesses. Mike, I'm going to ask you to kick off this one. Since you work with a lot of seniors, and I think they have a lot of something they might share with you.
I mean, from the senior center perspective, I don't know that there's a lot economically that people would complain about or feel a weakness. I think we really have it covered there. You know, the downtown, the empty storefronts, we don't have any major businesses that draw people in. It just needs revitalization for sure, and to be cleaner. I don't know if that we really consider that part of the economic, but definitely when you drive down Eastern Boulevard and you see trash out in the streets and on the roads, if there's something we can do to address that, that certainly would be helpful too.
Thank you.
And Maria, if I could.
Yes, Kevin, go ahead.
That one of the big weaknesses that work against sort of the economy in Essex would be, and I guess we've touched on this in other portions of the meetings and the surveys as well, but it's really a perception issue. So most of the time, Essex isn't necessarily looked at in the most favorable light. And so that may then cause a business not to want to relocate there, or it may cause a business to want to not invest or improve that property as they normally would if it were located in some other area. And I think that one of the biggest hurdles that we have to overcome is breaking that perception thing. So whether that perception is, hey, when I'm in the commercial corridor in downtown Essex, I see all these other blighted properties and I need to sort of break that perception of, okay, everything here is just blighted. Or I need to break the perception of, hey, Essex is sort of a lower income version of Towson or White Marsh or something like that. I think being able to address some of those perception things is extremely important.
Thank you, Kevin. Anything else?
The decline of our older, especially our row home communities, changing the people that are in these communities, but I feel they're being neglected by the county, by code enforcement mainly. I think that'd be a big start there. But our row home communities are declining, and some of the problems in them are spreading out into our single home communities. And I'll just say rats, for instance, but, and the crime, I think, also. So I think declining older communities.
Thank you, Clive. Chris, do you? Okay, Leah, well, go ahead.
Well, I think part of the problem with the decline in the row home communities and the increase in crime is the lack of ownership, the lack of pride that these communities have, the lack of like people don't want to be involved anymore. People kind of, you know, are afraid to say anything. When they do say something or when they do make the phone call, they're kind of shut down. When you call the police, you're kind of like made to feel as if it's not as important as it should be, or as you feel it is. And people just not stepping up. I mean, if you're not involved in your community and if you're not willing to make the stand for your community, you're not going to get the involvement from the county agencies. You know, I beat up on code enforcement daily. They can attest to that over what happens in my community, but you have to follow through on it. You have to follow up on it. And we just don't have the people that want to be involved anymore for one reason or another.
Okay, thank you, Leah.
I would like to add to what Leah's saying. I agree with what she's saying. But we did a survey of several communities, well, more than several, a while back. And those communities have changed. We have, I'm going to use Middlesex, for example. It's 30% 30% rentals in there now. You go back 15, 20 years, there were 0 rentals in there. And we did a survey in Hawthorne also, Pat, and I think Hawthorne was 28%. So that's, as Leah's saying, you're having, when you change the homeowner to the home renter, and I'm not knocking a renter, but they're not in the game as much.
Okay, so I want to kind of directly, we will address this one in the next section about quality of life, but now we are talking about economy. So I'm not saying this is not important, but let's hold it, this one for the next part, and then now focus on the economy part.
Nothing I want to add. We don't have no GM, Bethlehem Steel, Eastern Stainless. And I think that's really hurt us.
Mm-hmm.
Big money jobs.
Okay, okay.
That has, Cliff, I agree with you because that has definitely hurt this area because this area has been consistently a blue collar community. So when people, and that's why they like when they make this comparison of there are less people in this area with bachelor's degrees, it wasn't necessary to have a bachelor's degree to make more money than somebody with a bachelor's degree. If you're working GM or Bethlehem Steel or any of those places, you could make just as much money. And we're a blue collar area. We're not a suit and tie, you know, type of area. So that's what we need to bring back into this area are the blue collar types of jobs, you know, because they all serve a purpose. We don't have to wear a suit and tie to be, you know, a good person, to have a good business, to, you know, have a good life.
Thank you, Leah. Sharon, do you want to chime in a little bit?
I think a lot of the things I had down for this area have already been covered. The only thing was about transportation, and we talked about that a little bit. The one thing that they did say when they came in from the state, it indicates that one of the weaknesses is that the commercial buildings lack architectural integrity, but the state kept saying about what good bones we had and that the buildings were built well in the commercial area. And then I guess just to update those statistics under the first part of the weaknesses, which I'm sure you will do.
Thank you. Okay, so maybe let's move to since now we have the strength and the weakness of the areas, let's move to the next sections. They're talking about potential outcome that we would like to see in the next 5 years and what strategies we will use to achieve those outcomes and any potential partnership that we can identify. So Sophie, will you mind to bring up the PowerPoint? Thank you. So before we go in it here, that's they showing you. So in the 2018, there has a 4 outcomes, which you can see on the screen. That they improve the appearance of the commercial districts on the Eastern Avenue and Back River Road, and then decrease excess employment rates and decrease commercial vacancies along the commercial corridors, and then comprehensive survey of properties 50 years or older, and increase visitation at the Heritage Society, Essex, and Middle River Museum. So they have 5 outcomes, sorry. And so the top ones is the improved appearance of commercial districts along the commercial corridor. And followed by that is pretty much the same, the decreased commercial vacancies and also decreased unemployment rate. So this is pretty much what, based on the survey, they feel like what's the most importance. Next slides. And here this is the 4 outcome, which is the same thing that we kind of use 5 outcomes they identify in the 2018, and we use as survey to ask them. So just here quickly go through the same outcome they has been talked about in the 2018. So decrease excess unemployment rate. Next slides. And then decrease commercial vacancy along the commercial corridor. Next slide. And then increase the visitation at the Heritage Society and Essex Middle River Museum. Next slides. And comprehensive survey of properties 50 years and older. And next slides. And improve appearance of commercial districts on the Eastern Avenue and Back River Neck Road. And this one is the top one. They, based on the survey, they 36% that this one is very important as the more priority for them to address in the next 5 years. So I will ask Sophie to stop sharing, and then we are going to talk about, see whether those 5 outcomes indicated in the 2018 still applicable to now, or will you want, how you want to feel like which item is more important that we should address. But then I just want to remind that in the earlier that we discussed weaknesses, that they came and mentioned about the perceptions and also type of jobs should be bring into the area, like Leah and Cliff addressed. So that's open discussions. Yeah.
Emery, if I could start, I think that one of the big things that we should look at doing would be to encourage the adherence or utilization of the revised Essex commercial district guidelines that we did for property renovations, new building, new construction, things like that, that exist within the Eastern Avenue corridor and that Back River Neck Road corridor, since that aligns with sort of one of the major desires that was articulated with the survey that you had presented the results for. You know, I know Sharon was on that, and a couple other folks were on that that committee to revise those guidelines. And I think that if we were able to find ways that we could utilize grant funds or outreach opportunities by utilizing money that would become available through the Sustainable Community designation to sort of encourage more people to meet as many check boxes in those commercial design guidelines as possible. I think that that would really help to address some of the blight, some of the lack of architecture that Sharon was talking about, and things like that in those commercial corridors.
That's a good point. Thank you, Kevin. Anyone else? If now I want to slow things, the perceptions, how I think the perception is something that might require several years to really change people's mindset. Anything, do you think that there should be the outcome, or how we would address that? Go ahead, Kevin.
I know that one of the things excuse me, that was discussed as part of the TAP was to do sort of a marketing or rebranding of Essex, and particularly of the downtown commercial corridor, to sort of help change that perception. If we can sort of brand Essex and do a marketing campaign, do sort of uniform tagline, slogans, things like that, similar to what you see in Dundalk or in Towson, or you know, total different example, but Berlin or Ocean City. Sort of, you know, they sort of create almost a economic development arm of their own, just kind of marketing that area for the different farmers markets, bazaars, craft fairs, tree lightings, you know, new businesses that are coming in, existing businesses and specials that they're doing, things like that, to kind of to help change that perception of the area.
Thank you. Anyone else? Sharon, go ahead.
I just wanted to address what Kevin mentioned, the beginning of a branding campaign. It's kind of a long process and can be an expensive process, but we did request funding for to begin implementation of a branding campaign for the Essex area. It was part of our request for CRAG funding for 2023. So we will find out whether we're able to start that process.
Mm-hmm. Anyone? Dia, go ahead.
Back to what I had started to say was, you know, we need to look at ways to bring businesses into this area that meet the criteria of its residents. You know, I don't want to see Essex change into a white collar, you know, suit and tie area. That's not what we are known for. Do I want to see us upgraded and see us get the same things that those areas get? Yes. But we have to also recognize that there are people here that are blue collar. We need to look at bringing a trade school or trade schools into this area. I mean, we have, you know, I mean, I'll look at Cliff and I say we have an auto repair center, a collision repair center there. We're on the water, so you know, Sam has a marine repair center. So why not have a trade school in this area that meets the needs of these areas? Auto repair, marine repair, that type of thing. Let's start training these kids coming out of school to, you know, make money coming out of school and not be in $100,000 worth of debt to have to go to college.
Thank you, Dia. And Lisa, go ahead.
I was just going to say my day job, I work at CCBC, and we have all of those programs and more, and a lot of people can go for free. So I know that's something we've been trying to market lately at the college, that, you know, we have all these trades that people can go for free. So it might be something when we're marketing Essex, just to kind of put that out there.
That's great, but CCBC will be one of the partners to maybe to implement this outcome. And Lisa, do you want to talk about tourism? Since you are also working with the museum, so anything that you feel that we might to put there to achieve to one way is branding, but the other way is also bring people to the areas.
Right. I know I've been working with the Baltimore County Historical Society and several other museums. I know the Martin Museum, I think Todd's Inheritance, Ballstone, a couple other people, Henrietta Lacks, like all the kind of different groups in the area. And then there's some others that aren't on this side of town, but trying to get together. We've met a couple times, but to try to brainstorm on tourism, like as far as the historical spots in the areas. But I know that's something in 2023 we're trying to get together to do, kind of like a tour with different places. But I mean, as far as other tourism, there, you know, tons of stuff that we have going on the water and the parks and the golf, like Sharon mentioned. I mean, we have a lot to offer.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Pat, your hand still on. Do you want to say something?
I just wanted to, I kind of agree with Leah and Kevin on, you know, trying to keep Essex, you know, how it is the blue collar way. Because I know when I moved here 30 years ago, or actually started dating my wife, she was from Essex. I was from the other side of town in Catonsville. And it's one of the first things that I noticed about this community was the blue collar area. I mean, the blue collar aspect of it. Her mom's boyfriend worked at General Motors. Wife's uncle retired from Bethlehem Steel, and it was all Elvis and oldies and all that kind of thing as far as my mother-in-law was concerned and how it was back then. But how do you rebrand it? That's the thing. How do you, that would be my question. How do you keep the blue collar kind of mentality going on with trying to revitalize the area?
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. Mike?
I just want to sort of tag on to the tourism portion and the rebranding a little bit. And I think what we really need is probably some sort of committee specific to Essex to start sort of gathering information, because it sounds like there's a lot of fractured information about what's offered. And then there's activities in the Essex Middle River community that maybe could be promoted more heavily. And off the top of my head, I'm just thinking we've seen all the signs recently are starting for like the Essex Middle River Boat Parade or things like that, which may attract people down here and start to see the area in a different light. So, part of changing the image is not just marketing, but getting people to come here and actually experience Essex and have a positive experience. So I don't know if there's some sort of committee or a tourism committee that could be formed.
Okay. Rick?
Yeah, I wanted to add that Baltimore County is actually does have a tourism contact who is, that's all she's going to be doing is focusing on tourism, Abby Vitaliano in our department, and rebranding will be part of that. So we will connect her with this group so we can brainstorm some ideas, and you can go through her. She'll be starting that job probably in a few weeks.
Thank you for the information, Rick.
Mm-hmm.
Pernell, do you want to add something?
Not at this time.
Okay, that's fine. And we also have Rosemary and Stevie on the committee. Do you guys have anything would like to chime in or provide your input? Okay, Rosemary.
Oh, wait, here we go.
Yeah, we can hear you now.
I don't know if you can see me or not. I've lived here. I'm actually from Pennsylvania originally, but I've lived in Baltimore for, I guess, 25, 30 years, but I've lived in Essex for 15. And I do love the blue collar aspect of Essex, but I also love the white collar aspect of Essex. I don't think we should disregard trying to get in college graduates or people that are white collar into this community. I think that could actually help, not necessarily hurt. I mean, keep the blue collar aspect, but I don't think there's anything wrong with also bringing in and trying to attract the white collar aspect as well. And I will tell you, just as a realtor, Middle River seems to have a much better reputation than Essex. So even though we're lumped in the same, and I've been a full-time realtor since 2004, I still always I'll move, maybe consider Middle River, but I won't go to Essex. So I don't like that we're lumped in. I don't know if that's helping us. I mean, I guess it is helping us, but I don't know. There's something about Middle River that people still respect, but they don't respect about Essex. So I don't know. So that's just kind of my input or my feel. Like, let's try to you're talking about Greenlee, but that's Middle River. It's still not Essex. We don't have high-end apartment complex here. We have low-end rentals. And that might be something we look into as well in the future, getting some of those high-end kind of like rental facilities here, or whatever they're called, rental places. That's just my input.
Thank you so much,
You're welcome.
Rosemary. Anyone want to respond, or if not, then I think that's very good, robust discussions, and we are up to 6:50, so we are moving to the second topic, which is quality of life. So And this one is particularly important. I guess I would say to you that the previous 5 topics which can all merge into this one because it's intertwined together. How to create the quality of life in the areas. I think any perspective or any topic we have been addressed is all important and then really directly relate to and results in the high quality of life in Essex. So move the next slides. Thank you. So again, so here on the screen, you know the format. We will talk about strengths and weakness of the access, and then we talk about potential outcomes and strategies to facilitate or help to achieve those outcomes and potential partners. But here, the quality of lives you can see on the screen, they including the improvement of public safety and reduction of crimes, libraries, educational facilities and programs, health and wellness facilities and programs, senior facilities and programs, youth facilities and programs, facilities and programs for the disabled, civic amenities, access to quality food options, collaboration with faith-based organizations, art and entertainment education, and homelessness prevention services and facilities. So this is also cover quite a range of the topics, which is all leading to the one we would like to see have a high quality life in the areas. Next slide. So you guys all know about that day. So the next slide, I'm going to show you what information we gathered from the survey. They think of the strengths regarding quality life in the area. And then after that, we are going to talk about a review those having outlined in the 2018 action plan. And then we will stop sharing the screen and then we will discuss what strengths we have in the area regarding quality of life. Next slides. So from the survey, we can see that they tie into the first topic we discussed, environment, and also the waterfronts, parks, and then we have strong community involvement. You just like you guys, the community leader has been devote yourself to your communities, and we have access libraries, services, various learning and fun activity for communities, and we also have access senior centers and strong police presence and response. So this is what we gathered from the survey. Next slides, next 2 slides, we have we group of the 4 topics has been outlined in the 2018 action plan. What's the strength regarding quality life in these areas. So the first one is water and waterfronts, and the first one I'm not going to read, but you can see we have public boat ramps available, fishing piers, marina boat services, and proximity to waterfront amenities. And then for facility, which has been mentioned, that we have senior centers available, Baltimore County Public Libraries and Heritage Society and Access Middle River Museum, which is more provided different kinds of program to community members. Next slides. And then we also have educations here talking about proximity to community college of Baltimore counties and educational opportunity and options other than public school. Some other facilities can provide these kinds of educational programs. And then we have service and place of worship close to the hospital and medical centers or Martin State Airport, and also large quantities of place of worship. So this has been outlined the strengths regarding quality of life. So now we are going to stop sharing the screen and we are going to see what are other strengths that you can identify in the areas.
I think that one of the biggest strengths that Essex has would probably be its residents. The residents there are passionate about their community. They know that their community has the ability to be better than what it is, but they also see the strengths that it currently has and they embrace those. You know, one of the things in visiting other parts of the county, in having friends, family that live in other portions of the county, it seems to be more of an East Side thing, not necessarily Essex specific, but the residents tend to be a little bit friendlier, more engaged, more willing to go out of their way to be neighborly, to be accommodating. And I certainly think that that helps to set us apart in terms of strengths when it comes to quality of life. Proximity to the waterfront, the history, the culture, I think is also important. There's a diverse mix of population in Essex, which is also something that is certainly a strength. And a diverse, I guess, socioeconomic background for the residents that live there as well. You have, the going joke for many years is that Essex is the one place where you can have a shit house next to a castle. You have certain places where you can have $1 million, $500,000 home, and where someone who has a 6-figure income and a doctorate's degree next to someone who was a shipbuilder down at the port or was down at Bethlehem Steel, making steel, and lives in the original house that they purchased when they first got married. It's a very eclectic mix, and I think that mesh of people, the blue collar, the white collar, the affluent, the not so affluent, the different races and backgrounds, families that have been here for multiple generations versus folks who are newcomers or folks who only come here as summertime residents. I think that that's sort of one of the things that helps to make Essex so special, and make it such a unique place.
Thank you, Kevin. And so since they have been mentioned about Senior Center Library and also the museum, so I would like Mike and Yvette and Lisa, maybe you guys talk about a little bit relate to these 3 facilities. Yeah.
I can go first about senior centers. So we are lucky to have a senior center in our zip code, which makes it convenient for seniors to get to. There's activities there, many affordable activities, some free. And luckily our senior center is a fairly modern building. It was really remodeled in the 80s, so fairly recent for considering some of the structures here in Essex and how long ago they were built. So it is nice to have that asset here. So if there's somebody that has better knowledge on the libraries and the other structures, they're welcome to talk now, though.
Yvette?
Gotta unmute myself. Yeah, I mean, we've been doing a lot here we have a social worker, we had a social worker, and presently we're in a bit of a hiatus because she has left the position, but she was assisting a lot of people with real needs here because the library sees, especially this branch, of all those in Baltimore County, we see a large proportion of people who are experiencing homelessness and addiction, who are unemployed and looking for any help they can get. So we're here to assist them, and they're all welcome as long as they abide by the rules of conduct that everyone has to follow. I get a lot of flack from other individuals who don't want to see them. They want them to be invisible. And that's really difficult for us because our mission is not to keep people out. But we have groups like Healthcare for the Homeless. They come in and they now have a coordinator who's coming in with a social worker once a month to help assist people. SNAP benefits. We're not equipped to help individuals get SNAP benefits, but we do have someone from CCBC who is coming in also once a month to assist with that. And there's a huge need for that here. And these people just don't know what to do. And we currently set up appointments all throughout the county. Librarians set up appointments with customers for an hour. And during that hour, we can do whatever it is that they need. If they need to apply for jobs, if they need to seek unemployment or Social Security or any number of things. So we're heavily involved in trying to improve quality of life where we can and making a difference where we can. And we have fun programs too. I mean, we got a grant to bring music to Essex, and we had a concert recently out in our courtyard that drew about 70 to 75 people. So, we're doing a lot of positive things, but we also see where the real needs are. And there is just, there seems to be no way of really helping the individuals who are disadvantaged and really at the other end needing so much help.
Thank you, Yvette. And so I will let Lisa talk about the museum, and then Rosemary, you have your hands on, and once after Lisa finishes, then it's your turn. Thank you.
Okay. I think I covered mostly everything earlier when I talked about kind of replanning for 2023 to be more accessible and more open. I did talk last time about our moving the Essex Cube over to the courtyard at the museum. So we're going to kind of create a little pocket park back there for people. Right now, I think we're dealing on a smaller scale of what's going on at the library with homeless folks hanging out over there. Not really sure what the solution is about that right now, but something we're working on. As far as the facility, the actual building itself, the museum, it's 100+ years old at this point. So we always have a project going on, hoping to get kind of a new boiler system soon, lots of painting. We recently had some stuff done in our back meeting room. So always a project going on.
Thank you, Lisa.
Thank
Shannon?
Just real quickly, I think I would add to that that Eastern Tech has been named by U.S. News and World Report as the top high school in the county. I see the mention of Our Lady of Mount Carmel and whatnot. And as we're talking about Mount Carmel, the fact that we are going to have one of the best turf fields in all of Baltimore County in the Essex area that can bring in people for sports and help the businesses in the area in a touristy kind of perspective, I think is something to talk about. And then some of the events that we have in the Essex area, like Essex Day, which helps to bring people to the downtown area and is very important and is a big deal that's been around for a long time, as well as the tree lighting and the farmers market, and any other events like Yvette was talking about, any ways that we can bring people in with various events, and those events seem to be increasing in numbers. So,
Shannon, did you know when the Access Day initiate? What year? Do you guys know?
1975.
1975. Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
And anyone else? Molly, did you think Shannon talk about the top area and there's Renaissance Park? Do you want to chime a little bit regarding the quality of life things? The first top things of waterfront and the parks, open space.
Sure, yeah. I mean, there are quite a few park locations. Cox's Point Park would be the other big one with the waterfront accessibility there. I think that's a great resource. And yeah, as far as strengths, I think that there are a number of parks and schools that have recreational facilities, and also the Recreation Activity Center for Mars Estates is a significant recreational asset.
Thank you. Rosemary?
And I don't know why I can't get video on, but anyways, I'm going to say that number one, I love the water here and I love boating. So I think that's one of our greatest strengths. And the lack of traffic is also a great strength. When I go to Perry Hall, it's just a nightmare. But I'm going to tell you, my daughter, she's in 7th grade now, and she's attended Mars Estates as well as she's in Stemmer's Run right now. And it's sad that their rankings are so low because they're fabulous schools. She did like Mars Estates has a former principal of the year. And you're right about the park. Whoever mentioned that like they have the PAL Center, which is really nice. The classroom sizes are small. The principal has brought in like extra teachers to keep it that way. That's actually, being a Title I school is actually an advantage that people don't understand, that we get more resources, therefore we get more teachers, and therefore our classrooms are smaller. My friends in Perry Hall complain about the class sizes all the time being too big. And now that she's in Stemmers Run, that's actually an IB program, IB magnet program that we do not advertise enough here in Essex. I actually have friends that have applied to there that haven't gotten in. But again, like for one reason or another, the rankings are so low at these schools, but they're actually really great schools. And of course, Eastern Tech. But anyway, so those are two of the strengths that I think. Sadly, the schools don't get the respect that they deserve. But we have boating and water here. My word, like I don't know why we can't get more people to live down here.
Thank you,
That is it.
Rosemary.
You're welcome.
Thank you. So that's one of the strengths is about relate to the medical service and also the hospital. Jamel Mo says, will you want to say something since you are from the the Department of Health? Do you want to say something regarding?
I just wanted to say that, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I just wanted to say that we have the Center for Family Success that's also located in Essex. It's really designed to help young parents. We have an educational program, daycare center located there. We provide substance abuse education and connection to a wide range of resources. Also connected to that is a health center that's located right there in Essex also. And then we have the local the district office for the Department of Social Services that's located right in Essex, that's designed to help people get temporary cash assistance, SNAP, connection to medical assistance, and a wide range of more immediate emergency services. So some of the things that we provide in the Essex area directly to the resident. And then the other thing is that we, in a partnership with the Department of Aging, have recently launched a program to really focus in on hoarding. Coming out of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of older folks who are who've been referred to us for issues around self-neglect, and so we've really made a concerted effort to try to reach out to some of those isolated individuals and really provide a whole range of supportive services to one, keep them in the community, but then also to try to connect them with their extended family members.
Thank you so much, Jamel.
I'm sorry, I'm taking notes and I couldn't really hear the last thing you were saying about the partnership with the Department of Aging. Can you try to repeat what that was?
Yeah, we partner with the Department of Aging to address issues around hoarding. Coming out of the pandemic, we've seen a lot of elderly individuals.
Hoarding is what you were saying. Sorry, I didn't catch the word. Got it. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you both. So since we are talking about the strengths, so I'm going to ask Sophie to bring the PowerPoint back. We are going to talk about the weakness. So again, from the survey, some of the weaknesses identified by those take the surveys are crime, violence, drugs, including on the residential streets, legal events, not many community activities, homeless people sleeping at bus stops on benches, low-ranked schools, not enough activity for the seniors, and poor policing. Next slide. And then in the 2018s, they identified several issues. So we kind of group them into 5 topics. So the first one is business in the commercial areas. You can see it's like a vacant properties and low sense of the direction and sense of place in the area. Sorry, the typo there. And limited potential activity in the area and the lack of chain restaurants in area. And for attractions, lack of cohesive architectural characters in community, few cultural attractions, and poor appearance of the area, such as commercial corridor or some residential areas. And school is that low performing schools and the overcrowded, overcapacity schools. Next slides. And then the other 2 is the crimes and opioid problems. Overcrime rates increasing in the areas, and police force staffing issues, and opioid problems highly prevalent in areas. And then the last one is the social issues that they have like a rat infestation issues, midges, bats infestations, and coal violations. And areas media household income is far below the county's median, and aging housing stocks. Some of the thing has been raised in our discussions earlier. So I'm going to ask Sophie to stop sharing, and then we will talk about some weakness in the areas. Kevin?
Yes, sir. So a couple things that come to mind in terms of weaknesses. I guess certainly the blight issues with code enforcement, issues with rats, issues with, things of that nature are still remain issues. Another thing that I know we touched on before in another one of the sections and meetings that we had covered, but the concentration of rental housing or transient housing within the sustainable community designation, particularly that area between 702 and South Marlin Avenue, where there's sort of this giant cluster of World War II era and early 70s apartment complexes, kind of the old school garden style, that are on the lower range in terms of income and in terms of aesthetics and marketability. And then the things that come with that, having all of the transient housing sort of clustered in that one area, that there's sort of a pocket of crime, drug activity, blight in that area as well, is certainly a weakness. One of the other things that wasn't touched on before, but I think is important to note, is that the area that's covered by the sustainable community designation really lacks, I guess, organized community groups or organized community associations, which could be advocates for it. I mean, presently, the only two that I think are super kind of active, there's Sussex that's in that area that's really active, and then I think Hawthorne that's in there. And in Middlesex was active for a while. I don't know that they're as active anymore, and same thing with Essex. But I think, many years ago in the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, when a lot of these, older row home neighborhoods or older established neighborhoods were really thriving, they had those active improvement associations, community and civic groups that really sort of took a vested interest. Places like Country Ridge, Fox Ridge, to help sort of give a sense of place and grounding and a voice for some of those communities to help tackle some of those issues and address some of those things. And the lack thereof right now, I think, is certainly a weakness. And then in terms of looking at things that we do sort of down the road to try to address those weaknesses, I think that maybe looking into a way to, revive some of those community organizations or provide mentorship or guidance to get those things formed, I think would potentially be very helpful.
Thank you, Kevin. So, Captain Chris Kelly, do you want to address some of the weakness related to the crime and some other issues?
Thank you. So overall crime in this designated area has decreased overall by 17% from 2018 through 2021. Crimes against persons, that rate per 100,000 residents has decreased in that area as well, from over 4,100 incidents to 3,900. Where we did see an increase is what NIBRS will reclassify crimes as crimes against society. And those would be crimes that are no direct victim, offenses like weapons possession, disorderly conduct, maybe open container alcohol violations. So that is an indicator to me that either two things. One, our officers are being more proactive and coming upon things, and or our citizens are calling us more for things that they're observing, not directly involved in. So that increase kind of goes in tandem of crimes against society. What we're talking about here, the blight, the broken windows, the trash the crime and grime that we're kind of seeing. One of the areas that we as a county are doing well, but we in Essex are challenged is in the narcotics and overdose arena. I'm happy to say that as a county, our fatal overdoses are down almost 25% this time this year over last year. Non-fatals are down 24%, and fentanyl related are down about 30%. However, the east side of the county accounts for about 50% of those fatal overdoses. Essex in particular had 36 so far this year. It's the number 2 highest area in the county, second to Dundalk, which had 50. So that is something that is something that's social health issue. We believe a lot of that work in reducing the fatal overdose numbers is attributed to the prevalence of Narcan and people getting help and treatment. So that's a good thing. But we still something, and coupled with that substance abuse problem comes typically property crime, some violent crime. So we will see that. Some of the other things that we're happy to announce in the Essex area, we've invested a lot of time in grant funding. We have some really exciting funds coming available that were acquired from the county from the American Rescue Plan Act. So we're going to see some technology deployed in this area. Shot spotter is something that is coming. It's a shot detection system. Really, we have 2 areas in the county, Essex being one. I'm happy to announce that we we received a grant for a domestic violence specialist. This would be like a licensed clinical social worker to work in tandem with our domestic violence coordinator in the Essex precinct. They're going to do more long-term strategy and planning, looking at repeat domestic violence victims and households. Not only just in domestic violence, typically what we see is other crimes happening, child abuse, child neglect, animal abuse, things like that, and substance abuse. So we're happy to have that program. It's a 2-year program, funded total of $180,000 investment there. And the county executive has invested in a feasibility study for a new Essex precinct, which is way overdue. So we're very happy about that. We meet every 2 weeks with the consulting company. We're in the process of a feasibility study. So the location of the Essex precinct will remain where it is, but we anticipate a really nice new 21st century state-of-the-art facility for our officers to work in. And we've also had something that's not directly related to Essex, but certainly can benefit Essex, and that is we're investing in a community bus or community van, like a mobile command post, but it's designed for community events, community meetings. It's a public thing we can use for multi-purpose thing. So I anticipate us using that. We're in the process of purchasing that vehicle brand new. And that's something that we want to bring to your community in Essex and use it for different events. You can host meetings there, workshops, and things like that. So it's good to engage with the kids and juveniles that way, and also with all citizens. So we're excited about that.
Thank you, Captain Chris Kelly. This is a very informative information. Thank you so much. And then I see Rosemary and Yvette raised their hands. So Rosemary go first, and then Yvette followed by that.
I think that my hand, I need to figure out a way to keep it down. I didn't raise it.
Okay, then Yvette first, and then Pat after that.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I was just going to say that in regards to the opioid addiction and fatal overdoses, we have had 2 fatal overdoses on library property probably in the last year and a half, 2 years. And all of the staff are trained. We all have our Narcan. We have used them frequently because it's just a fact here. But we're convinced that it has saved lives. And the Department of Health has often come outside with a supply of Narcan and distributed them to people in the area.
Thank you, Eva. Pat?
Yeah, as far as the weakness of the police force staffing, number 2 on there, I was at the PCRP meeting last night for Precinct 11, and the retention of the officers is becoming an issue. Evidently, the officers have more incentive to go work in Hartford County because they get a take-home car. There's other incentives as far as 10 to 12-hour work days, and they'll be given more time off consecutively. Some guys are getting 2 days off in a row as opposed to 1 day off here, and a week later another day off. So I was kind of surprised at that. And they say that actually Hartford County with events will actually recruit some of our guys to go up there. So I don't know if Captain Kelly could talk more on that. But from what I understand, the officers on the west side are all going to Howard County, and the ones on the east side, we're losing them to Hartford County. So we need to find a way to have more incentive or for the recruitment to be better on this side of town. So I would consider that a weakness.
Okay, thank you, Pat. Captain Kelly, would you want to?
Sure. Yeah. No, very fair observation. Some officers have actually come back after going to other agencies, but certainly it's no surprise and no secret. Law enforcement in general is suffering a shortage in staffing. We currently I am project lead for our agency we've hired a consultant to do a staffing study and analysis. That is underway. I met with him actually last week. We've done basically 2 phases. One is a time on task, so we know how much work our officers are doing and how many officers and resources it would take by day of the week, hour of the day, to staff our current work volume. We're also, in tandem with that, looking at ways to use and leverage technology. We're looking to bring back a telephone reporting unit. We did away with that years ago, but we find that a lot of citizens would prefer that. They want the convenience. We live in this society in a generation of where some folks want an officer come to their home, and we are more than happy to do that. But some folks just need a report number for something minor, and they don't want to wait for an officer to respond, nor do they want to utilize that resource. They just want to be able to report it either online or over to telephone. So we're doing that to kind of save resources for officers on the street to perform functions. The end goal of the staffing study is to allow our officers to have more discretionary time. Less time dedicated to going from call to call to call, and more time dedicated to problem-oriented policing, community policing, engaging with young people, doing traffic enforcement on complaint roadways, things like that, instead of just going and running from call to call to call. The other part of this study is a queuing model has more to deal with dispatch delays and response time. So we are actively working on that. As far as recruitment and pay and compensation, there are a lot of different things and why people choose to go to agencies. We are piloting a take-home car program. So there will be eventually 2 vehicles in each precinct. Currently, my whole career, we've always had the problem where there's no money for take-home cars. But the current administration, we have money for the take-home cars. The problem that we're having now is a supply shortage on vehicles. Ford, where we have our vehicles, our police interceptor cars, has delayed delivery. Just as you go to any car dealership and you see the lots are empty. So that's a challenge that we have now, but we are piloting that program. That will also tie into our staffing study, a possibility of looking at alternative work schedules, 10-hour days, and things like that. But all that is up in negotiations. We are looking to pilot some different work schedules. Again, with the addition of a new precinct, some of those things that we find our officers that enjoy coming to work in a nice, clean, state-of-the-art facility and investments in equipment is where we were able to hopefully retain some officers. But every agency is struggling every profession, I think, really is struggling to find good help. We heard that earlier in the call about finding it under the workforce development. We are probably going to be getting a mobile hiring van from Workforce Development. I believe they got a new one. I think we are getting their old one so that we're able to go out into the community and recruit directly from the community, applicants, and try to work on that from that way, different ways to do it. So.
Thank you so much, Captain Kelly. Other have any input regarding the weakness of the areas? If not, before we move, I will ask Sophie to bring up the presentation. And I know that today we have a lot of discussion, so I may delay the meeting 5 to 10 minutes. I hope you guys bear with me so that way we can have nice ending after the third work group meeting, okay? So now we are going to talk about potential outcome we can have for the next 5 years to address to improve the quality of life in the areas. So before that, here again, so based on the 2018, the outcome have 4 outcomes. So you can see on the screen, and one of the things based on the survey result indicate that they address vacant storefronts is one of the big issue, and followed by that is co-enforcement, community involvement, and outreach. And then the last 2 things, like a little bit lower percentage of developer branding opportunity in access, and the increasing knowledge of community histories. So the next slide. So the next slide is the same for outcome identified in 2018. So the co-enforcement and community involvement and outreach. And the next slide is address the vacant storefronts, which is the highest percentage they based on the survey. And then the third one is developer branding opportunity in Essex. And then the last one is increasing the knowledge of community histories. So I'm going to ask Sophie to bring down the presentation, then we can talk about what are the other outcome or priority that you would like to see in the next for us to address in the next 5 years. Cliff, thank you.
That survey where a large percentage was vacant storefronts surprises me a little bit. I know along the boulevard, there's a drastic decrease in them from when we went in there in 18. If I recall, I have figures, but I believe it was 32 between Back River Bridge and Marlin Avenue. And at my last count, now this is not counting the little mini shopping center there by the Essex Diner. But I think we was down to like 8 vacant properties along there. So I don't know about, Kevin could probably answer down along Back River Neck Road. I know that shopping center there's been taken over by new people, but the vacancy as far as the boulevard is drastically improved.
It's been a mix on Back River Neck Road. Country Ridge Shopping Center, it did come under new ownership, which decreased the vacancy rate there. There are still a few problem properties. The old Jazz Caddy Shack, which was a problem nightclub, is now, I guess, appeared to become vacant. There's the Chosen Hands Corner property that's vacant. There's a few others up and down Back River Neck Road. It's not horrible, but it still certainly is something that we'd like to try to facilitate some improvements to.
Wouldn't you say, Kevin, if maybe the effort that we have put along the boulevard to, get the weeds, the trash, plant, if those type of efforts were put along Back River Neck Road, that would.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it goes a long way, even just the little stuff. When you go in and you start picking up the trash, when you start, doing little beautification things, people take notice of that. And it starts to, I'll use Country Ridge as my example. For years, that shopping center sat derelict and abandoned. I shouldn't say abandoned, but derelict, kind of falling apart, and no one wanted to go there. Someone came in and sort of did the bare minimum. They, painted it in more aesthetically pleasing color. They, resurfaced the parking lot and lined it. They added some landscaping. They put in proper lighting, and they actually started, I don't want to say aggressively marketing, but marketing it from a positive standpoint. And it made a tremendous difference in being able to attract and retain tenants. So I think that if you were to implement a lot of the same strategies that were done on the Boulevard on Back River Neck Road, you would see a lot of the same positive progress.
I was just shocked to see that survey say vacant properties were such the amount of people, but.
Anyone else?
I think that one of the other things too, if you're looking at the sustainable community designation as a whole and not focusing just on the commercial side of it, I think that being able to, help build some of those communities and restore that sense of community. So whether it's helping to, organize more community events or gatherings, or to foster, the building of community associations in areas that are currently underserved or underrepresented, or being able to, market some of those neighborhoods like Middlesex, like Hawthorne, like Country Ridge, that are, very well built row home communities. They have a lot of good, hardworking people that take great pride in their homes, but just sort of giving those communities the extra little push to kind of market them, put a positive spin on them, to get younger families, to get people who are first-time home buyers to want to invest in those communities and help make them a little bit more stable again, and a place where you can raise a family, where people take great pride in ownership and in pride in their properties. I think that if we're looking at targeting the quality of life in communities, that's certainly a way that we could do that. I look at, and I've mentioned this to Amy before on a couple different occasions, but being able to implement something similar to what you see with the Dundalk Renaissance Corp, where they go and they've targeted certain neighborhoods, where they offer home buyer grants, where they do, tours of different neighborhoods within Dundalk. If we were to do that same thing in Essex and say, hey, we're going to do tours, and we're going to, Country Ridge, Hawthorne, Sussex, I guess Essex proper above, I guess the opposite side of the boulevard from Sussex, to be able to then market those areas and sort of put that positive spin on them, undertake different community improvement projects, but also try to steer people who are looking at purchasing, homes, or first-time home buyers, to steer them in that direction and showcase, what positive attributes each of these areas have. I think that would certainly be something that we should look at.
Thank you, Kevin. So I will let Pat talk, and once Pat finishes, Leah, will be your turn, okay?
Yeah, something I would like to see more of is the code enforcement sweeps of especially the high density neighborhoods like mine, because we have such a high rental. And I'm not saying all renters are bad, but a majority of some of these people do not take care of their properties. They don't clean up their dog mess or keep their lids on their cans or anything like that, even though we all just bought, everybody in parts of the county, a brand new trash can. It's just a matter of them having to use it. And plus the grass issues and the way some of the houses are being not kept up. I just think more code enforcement needs to be implemented. I get complaints from all my community members about how they don't get any help from code enforcement, which I've contacted them a few times. I don't have too much of a problem with them being responsive to me, but like Leah said, she's on with the phone with them every day. So they either need to get more agents out, or the enforcement sweeps need to be happen more often, instead of just maybe once or twice a year. Do it once a month or something like that. And I think that would help us out as far as, keeping the neighborhoods clean. And when we do a tour, as Kevin mentioned, the neighborhood will look nice. So that will incentivize somebody to be able to purchase a home as opposed to flipping it or being sold to an LLC and being rented out. So
Thank you, Pat.
Mm-hmm.
Dia?
All right, so let me address Pat first, and then I'll go back to what my initial statement was. Pat, so unfortunately with code enforcement, they're proactive. I mean, they're reactive, not proactive. So what we have found with them is even when we request a sweep on a particular area, the code enforcement agent comes in and just hits the most obvious issue. So they're not going to address the whole entire house or the whole entire property. They pick 2 or 3 of the most egregious issues on that property, write them up for that. That's been one of my beefs with code enforcement for a long time. If I turn a property in for tall grass and weeds, when that inspector comes out, he should tear that house apart. He should know everything that's there. It's not my job to do their job. But you don't have to wait once or twice a year. Justin Olszewski is the person, or he was, I guess he still is, the person's in charge of code sweeps. You can reach out to him anytime you want to and request and give him, and they work better if it's like 2 or 3 blocks. So pick 2 or 3 blocks and say, come hit this. Pick another 2 or 3 blocks, say, come hit this.
Right.
That's the best way to work it. Now, I keep a database of anybody in my community who's been turned in. I check them to see, because a lot of times what's happening, which happens all the time, is they'll mark them are in compliance, and I'll go and take more pictures and say, how does this work? So code is reactive. They're not proactive. Even though the C's and put in place more code inspectors, we probably need 3 times the amount in order for them to be able to be proactive. But if you stay on top of them, they will do their job. That's it for code. Back to what Cliff was saying. Go ahead, Pat. I'm sorry.
I think, like I said, I mean, when I've dealt with them, I really haven't too much of an issue, but I hear a lot from people in the neighborhood that say they're not getting any cooperation or anything out of them. And I mean, we really shouldn't have to ask them to come and do these sweeps, more often than they need to. I mean, they should come in and do it, because there's so many complaints, I would say, from my neighborhood for them guys, that you think they would come out on a regular basis of some sort. But like you said, they're reactive, not proactive. So it's just a matter of staying on top of it. But thanks for the input. I appreciate it.
Now, I know if they get 4 or 5 complaints on the same block, they will sometimes initiate their own sweep just because it's easier. But I mean, set it up once every 3 months. Just hit a certain area. Give them 3 or 4 blocks and hit a certain area that you see as having an issue. But I mean, you just have to stay on top of them, like with every agency. Basically, you have to stay on top of them. Cliff, from what you said about the vacancies in on the boulevard, I mean, I'm appreciative of the fact that we're getting businesses in there. I guess my issue is 8 drug clinics in a 2-block radius, 10 pawn shops. We just got 2 what are they called, tagging title places within 6 months. I want quality over quantity business. I'd sooner eat the vacancies and get a quality business in there than, fill a vacancy with another drug clinic or, another pawn shop or another smoke shop or another, CBD place or, something that's not going to last long anyway.
Eye candy.
Yeah, well, that place can.
Well, I agree with you there. I don't want those either, but a lot of those came in when the place was in total blight. And as it started to recover, the property rental charges there were cheap. They were cheap to rent then. And that's all part of our plan, is hopefully the tenants will be able to, the landlords will be able to charge more as the place improves, and some of those businesses will go elsewhere. But yeah, we don't want those, but a lot of those were in there before, and we're still suffering that changeover.
Thank you.
Real quick,
Go ahead,
can I ask Sharon a question? Sharon, is there still facade money available, or is that gone? for businesses on the boulevard.
There is still facade money available.
All right, I will call you tomorrow to talk about somebody.
Okay, thank you. And so I forgot that Sally, do you want to say something because that relate to the code violations?
Good evening, Sally Nash, Permits, Approvals, and Inspections. No, I know it probably feels frustrating, but code enforcement hears you. Essex is definitely one of the CEs and one of our main priorities. We try to be proactive. We've come a long way in terms of moving from a reactive posture to a more proactive posture in the last 4 years. It just takes time. It takes people. And you know, we've done a lot of sweeps in Essex. We've pioneered some more eradication programs, and we're getting out some more trash cans to different parts of the community. So, you know, it just takes a long time to get some of those improvements in place.
Oh, thank you, Solid, for information. Cliff, do you want to say something? Or Leah?
Yeah, code enforcement is great. I think they're 100% responsive as they can be with the amount of manpower they have. I think everybody knows, even our county executive, that we don't have enough code enforcement officers. So that's the problem. There's not enough code enforcement officers to take care of this buildup of these homes, as Pat's talking about, and a lot of these roads. There's a large number of code enforcement violations. Some yards with maybe 25, 30 in each yard. And to even put a dent in that, I would think for a while, you'd have to triple your code enforcement officers. And I've always said, fight crime with code enforcement. Because you got neighborhoods, and I think Pat will agree with me on this, and I know other community leaders will, when a community goes downhill, okay, when the percentage of rental homes in that community increases and the properties look like hell, the good people are moving out, okay? They're moving out. They're going all day, all constantly. So you're losing that person. A lot of times those properties are turning into a rental property, and the individuals that are moving into those properties are not people we want in our communities. And those people are bringing the crime into the communities.
Thank you, Cliff.
I think everybody, I just want to touch on that. It bothers me that I think everybody knows what we need, but just no one seems to do nothing about it. We hired, I don't know what, several code enforcement officers, dropping a bucket.
Thank you.
Not going to do the job. You can buy them all new trash cans. If they overfilled their old trash cans and the yard's a junk pile, that new trash can ain't going to do nothing. We got to go after the real problem. Until we do, a lot of these issues we're talking about, rebranding Essex, you're not going to rebrand Essex until you fix that.
Thank you, Cliff. And then we have Leah and then Pat.
Hey, Sally, I just wanted to clarify that I definitely was saying nothing negative about code enforcement. I have a very good relationship with them. I was just saying that the nature of the beast is they are reactive as opposed to proactive because there aren't enough of them. It's not like we have, you know, 1 or 2 code inspectors assigned to each community. You know, they kind of have to wait for the complaints to come in order for them to come out and you know, inspect. But I will say I don't like when they come out and they don't address every issue that's there. You know, and as far as getting them out there, I mean, we've said this, I think sometimes we need a nighttime inspector because when we have these businesses that are operating after hours and we need to get code enforcement involved, by the time code gets out there the next morning, the businesses, you know, they've stopped because they're working on the side. They're running an auto shop out of their driveway, out of their garage. You know, they're doing it after hours. And we turn it in and code shows up and there's nobody there. So, and Cliff, 100%. I agree with you that when you have the blight and the trash and the dirt and just people who don't care about their properties, that's when the crime upticks. And that's why we fight so hard over here to make sure that we keep our area clean and our community clean. And just by doing that, and people get upset when they get turned into code, and I just it is what it is. If they come out and you've not done anything wrong, they won't write you a citation or a correction notice. But we just have to keep fighting the fight here and just keep going and not let it dwindle. We have to keep going.
Thank you, Leah. So we have Pat direct something, and then the end, I would like Mike and Lisa, because you guys have some programs. I don't know whether have any outcome you would like to see the next 5 years, because they also relate to the quality of life. Unfortunately, Yvette's already left, but see whether you guys have something to say. Pat, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was a few years ago, I had heard that Middlesex had actually had some of their residents acting kind of like as agents for code enforcement, that were able to do the job of a code enforcement agent with a checklist of things on a pad and be able to present it to them. Now, I don't know if that's something if Sally could touch on, if that's something that could be implemented with community association members that could act as agents for the code enforcement and be the eyes and the ears for them on a more, serious basis.
Could you say that the beginning part one more time?
I thought I had heard a couple years ago, that the Middlesex community had some of their residents acting like code enforcement agents. They had a checklist of stuff, and they would go through the neighborhood in lieu of you guys and basically do the job of an agent and present the data back to you guys. So I don't know if that's true or not, or something
It's
I heard,
true.
but would that be something that it is true? So
It is true. Yeah,
something that could be implemented for other community associations to be able to, take up some of the slack that you guys have.
we tried that. We did just that. We drove the alleys, 4 people in one car, calling out the addresses, and different people were taking turns writing down the violations, but we overwhelmed code enforcement.
Oh, Lord. Okay.
They did come in and sweep. They said, look, this is so bad, we're gonna have to sweep. And they did sweep,
Right.
but didn't sweep
Okay.
every alley.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just too much for 'em.
So before I let Mike and Lisa say, Cliff, I just want to clarify, and Pat said that is a volunteer or that is paid by the county?
We were volunteers.
Volunteers.
Okay.
Yeah, volunteer.
Thank you. Mike and Lisa, do you guys want to say something before we close this discussion?
Sure, I'll be quick. I noticed one of the things listed as a weakness was programs for senior citizens, and that sort of is disappointing to hear as a senior center director who would like to see more people in our building. And I think one of the challenges is the level of poverty here in Baltimore County on the east side. Certainly programs cost money to offer to people, and I think the pricing of programs, even though we offer them very affordably, sometimes prevents people from accessing the center. And also transportation to the center is always sort of a big roadblock for people to access programs too. So I don't know, what's available out there, but if we could make it easier for people to get to the library or to get to the senior center, and then try to find some funding or support for programs, whether that's education or fitness or health education to help support programs at the senior centers or the libraries. I'm sure that would be more than welcome and hopefully help to address that issue.
Thank you, Mike, Lisa, and then Pernell. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess as far as I did notice the weakness too about lack of community events, and that's something we've been trying to address this past year. We had a huge Essex Day. We have a big tree lighting coming up. We've been doing a First Responders Day every year. That's been pretty successful. We've done it twice now. And like I said, just planning in January, we're going to try to plan some more things just to kind of get community, input and kind of just a place to meet, because we're right there in the middle of Essex, so it's a great spot.
Thank you so much, Lisa. And Pernell?
Yes, I like to Since we have just passed marijuana coming down the pike, and we know we live in this area that's going to be inducive to all these smoke shops and all this crap selling the marijuana. And since we got a lot of stakeholders online, it'd be great to try to find out how we as a community, communities, and all that are going to handle this, and make sure if you're looking at money, you're gonna have a lot of that coming around a thing. There's gonna be a lot of crime, a lot of everything else gonna be coming down too with the onset of the marijuana. So I like for something to be in there as Essex is trying to rebuild itself, to look at how that's going to affect the rebuilding of Essex.
Thank you so much, Panel. So now, Lisa, sorry for you might to bring up the presentation. Sorry for that. Thank you again for all the participants. Especially, I want to say thank you to the advisory committee. Thank you for participating in the whole process. And this is the last one. And our office really sincerely thank you for you guys' support and time and efforts and all the common suggestions. So once this meeting is finished, we are going to have the third topic surveys going to go online next Tuesday. But now we have our first topic survey and the second topic area surveys, which is currently go live on the hub. But tonight, the environment and transportation, which is the first topic area survey, will close tonight. I guess maybe it's 12 a.m. So if you still have opportunity to encourage your community member to take this survey, that would be great. And the second survey, a second topic area survey on housing and local planning and land use will be until next November 22nd, I think will be the next Tuesdays. So please help. I will send out the link to you guys again. So please spread the words and encourage them to take a survey. Next slide. And the last one is that if you have any, next slide, if you have any suggestion or something, that you can always email me. You have my personal email address, and this one you can also send to the sex portable called the md.gov, this email address, if you have any comments. And then you can also scan the QR code to link you to the Sustainable Community Hub, and where you can see the current surveys online and then other information you can gather. Thank you again for your participation. We are very appreciate your help and participation and time and efforts. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your evening. See you soon.